you are. I'm very happy you're here. Okay, some of you know, some faces I recognize. I'm Maureen Rabotin, and I divide my time between Paris and Palm Beach. And now I'm in very warm Paris. Oh, there's Lillian also. So I'm recognizing voices, faces, sorry. So basically, how are we going to work today? I have so much information to share, so I'm going to try to contain it into an hour. And I really would like this to be as interactive as possible. I would really like this to, like, we all come away with something, a golden nugget somewhere. And so since we all learn and listen differently, I thought I'd be sharing slides. It's not my preferred methodology, and I definitely will not do slides by, just by PowerPoint. But we will have a breakout room. So if for any chance you don't want to be in the breakout room, please just write in the chat now, just NBR, in case some people don't necessarily want that, and that's important. Okay, great. We have a conference April 27th, 29th next year. Something to look forward to. Okay, so I'd like to start. I'm going to start by sharing these slides. So I'll lose some of you, but don't hesitate to speak out or raise your hand. I really obviously want this to be a very safe space, even though it's being recorded. You know that we can edit it. So if there's anything that needs to be edited, by all means, let us know as well. Okay. So let me see if I can share these screens in the right way. And we will get started with a grounding exercise. Let's see here. So this is what we're talking about today. Creating awareness with compassion and psychological safety and group coaching supervision. I can give you some background about who I am, but I'd rather even just go to my website perhaps. But 2 words about why this is important to me. The word compassion is a word that's sometimes overused, but it's important, I think, that we understand that it's all about us being human. It's the needs of being human. It's the qualities of compassion, I think, is at the very heart of coaching and coaching supervision. And it's all about patience and wisdom, kindness, perseverance, warmth, and resolve. So that's how I sort of define compassion. And with that in mind, I'd like us to just start with a grounding exercise. We're all waking up, having lunch, going to sleep. I don't know what you're up to, but let me see if I can get this to work now, of course. Okay, so this is a little grounding exercise. You have my hearts. This is not only me who drew it, but me who wrote it. So I'm going to be open and vulnerable. So let's come together in relationship, trusting and safe, knowing we come wholehearted, with holes in our hearts, scars, scabs, and sore spots that make us all human. I hold my holes in heart-shaped red ruby purse, strung tight with patience, love, and stillness. Over time, you will earn the right to open the purse, and then, only then, will we walk together afar. So just take whatever you do, a breath, a stretch, leave what you've been thinking about before you joined us today, and take a quick, solid look at this picture. It's a skydiving team. Obviously, many will say, I'll never do that. So what I'd like you to do is to take a perspective and look at this image. Close your eyes if you'd like. And think of a time when you were a new member of a group. You walked into that group, you were on a remote, you didn't know anybody. How do you feel joining that group? And what would you like as a new member of this group? So really settle in that group. And as you feel that not only in your body, but in your mind's eye, write in the chat box some feelings, some expectations. What do you want from this group? Where's your mind at? Where's your heart at? And we can save the chat and we can come back to the chat afterwards, but please do just whatever comes into your mind. So of course you want to be welcomed, yes, and the sense of belonging. That's concern about what to do if I have to contribute, and how will I belong? How will I show up? Sincere curiosity. Acceptance. Yeah. Okay. Acknowledged, invited to participate as I'm ready. Great. All right. So we come with this desire to belong, to be included, to want to participate. And with that in mind, we're going to look at what does that really look like and feel like. And as you know, perhaps many of you, 40 people answered a survey that I did, and we're going to be looking at what happens when you are really in the group. So before I move on, take a look at this group and imagine what do you, if you're a coach supervisor, and then this was your group, your coaching supervision group, what do you see about the different members? Are they equal? Are they different? And again, something in the chat, or please speak out too. This is very interactive. I'm not dictating how we see things. So I don't hear anybody, but let me see if I can see anything on the chat that says how you see that, some are in the center, some are out in the distance, out in the outer circle, definitely. Some are similar, some are different, and there is diversity. There's even different colors of parachutes, right? Definitely excitement, fear, hope, all of those emotions are running through us as we are, if we were there as their supervisor. Okay, with those emotions, that's how we come. Some are holding hands and some are holding legs, but they're holding on, definitely. Okay, with those images, and people do want to feel that they belong. So let's see what happens when I looked at the survey that I put together. Now, first, before I show you just 2 slides of the surveys, I do want to admit, I will say mea culpa. I do think that when I reviewed the survey after a few months, it is biased. It's not academic. It's perhaps what I was experiencing, and I wanted to maybe have confirmation bias. But anyway, these are some of the answers to some of the questions if you took the survey. There was just a simple question. Can you think of a time when you felt the need to stay silent instead of speaking up or asking a question in a group team setting about something that you really felt mattered? And obviously of 40 people, there was a majority who said yes. And what was that like? And I gave them other examples of metaphors. What did that look like? What did that feel like? And of the 40 people, there were 20 people that answered, chose from what I had suggested. So that was a bit of, maybe leading on my half. And 11 people gave individual comments, such as, I felt silenced because other coaches needed to show how right they are. So if we go back to emotions, what does that look like, feel like for your group, in particular, if you are the group supervisor? And I felt the supervisor had biases and assumptions of who I was that were inaccurate and not relevant to the case I brought to supervision. That's 47.62% of people. So 10 out of the 21 who answered here, but still a majority of saying that, there were assumptions that were inaccurate. Or 28% here, I felt the supervisor was inaccurately interpreting the case I brought to coach supervision. And then the other 2, I felt I would never be good enough. We all, in one way or another, I know imposter syndrome has been used and overused, but I think that we all know what that looks like, feels like. If we haven't experienced it ourselves, we know people who have. And that obviously would also impact feeling excluded from the group. And I felt that the coaching supervision contract or alliance was not clear or well-defined. We say it once, we say it twice, ABC, always be contracting. But what does that look like, sound like, and feel like when you're in a group? So those are some of the thoughts. And for anybody who would like me to share the full survey, I'd be more than happy to. Some people had already asked me to do that. So shall we agree that discomfort is always a necessary part of enlightenment? There's discomfort, and then there's our comfort zone, right? And that's comfort zone that we live in, that we that we have our bearings, that our brain is comfortable, and we know everything that's being researched with neuroscience is that comfort zone. Our brain is in peace with itself. It's not trying to figure things out. And when we leave our comfort zone, when we're pushed out of our comfort zone, when we strive to be out of our comfort zone because we know that is how we grow, we learn, we also know that we will go through those emotional stages: anxiety, anger, rejection, impacting that sense of belonging, inclusiveness, that fear that will create that stress. So as coaches and as coach supervisors in particular, with a group, we're bringing these people at different times and different stages through that barrier, that emotional barrier, with the hope, obviously, of getting better results. And if anybody wants to intervene or say something about this image, by all means. Anything about your comfort zones, please.
There's a question in chat from Larissa. Larissa, do you want to ask?
Sure. Just the previous slide where you had the list of all the options. Were those? It says some of them are. It looks like some of them were pre-populated, and then it also gave the option to add your own. I'm just curious if you could speak to, because there's some pretty strong language in there, and I'm just curious, like, how many of those were pre-populated and what actually came from folks.
Okay, so everything you see there, thank you, Larissa, that was really important, because everything you see there is pre-populated, and that's where I gave my mea culpa, because I think that when I reread it months later, though I can't change it now, but I think that it was also indicative of my mindset as well, perhaps.
Okay, thank you for that.
I was just, but there are 11 individual comments.
Thank you.
Sorry. Sure.
Thanks.
Somebody else? Any other questions? Please jump in, because I can't see you. So, okay. So we're back to this emotional side. So we know that we're accompanying people through this emotion, and how do we do it in particular when there's groups? And you have examples of some of the comments that people said that they felt that they weren't included, et cetera. So the question I'd like you to reflect on is, what would coaching supervision look like and feel like if we allowed supervisees to arrive intact at their own transformation later, better than arriving early with a stack of needed repairs in the harness? And I adapted that a bit from Nancy Klein, because she was talking more about coaching, but I think I gave myself that license to change it slightly. And compare that to, I've studied a bit on clean language, and I found that what Penny Tompkins and James Lawley had written about was their desire for change. There being, obviously, for us, the supervisees, their desire for change does not need bolstering by our desire for them to change. In fact, the imposition of our desire into their process is often counterproductive. So just take a minute and think, how often do your supervisees and coaching supervision come with that, my client's not transforming enough, I feel too transactional, I have this desire, and sometimes I can't help but smile in the back of my mind, saying, who is the focus of the supervision? Is it my need for them to transform, or can I not wait to provide the psychological safe space?
Maureen, is that what you mean by needed repairs in harness?
Yes, that was coming out of Nancy Klein's book, More Time to Think, and she talks about that fact that sometimes we interrupt so much. We want to have these impactful or powerful questions, and what if we just held the space? So any other reflections on that? Or let me move into psychological safety, and then we'll probably have more to say as to where are we in our need for our supervisees, or even our coachees, if you're not a supervisor, to transform, to meet our expectations of having a powerful conversation. So one way I was looking at this, and this is just my curiosity, so there's nothing, not don't make any conclusions here, but this was my reflection. And I thought, as a coach supervisor, which of these three functions or styles of coaching supervision do you lead with? And we talk about developmental, and I prefer that word instead of functional, but we know that is facilitating the development, personal and professional, of the coach, development of the coach's skills, knowledge, and capacity. Or do you tend to lead more with supportive? I don't particularly like the word restorative, because that means repair. So, but there's also a resource, as in, resourcing one's energy, and that's providing that emotional support to the coach, attending to the emotions so the coaches don't allow themselves to be affected by the emotions of their coachees. Or do you lead with more of that ethical, that normative, qualitative, contributing to the quality of work and ethical standards of decision making, ensuring the supervisor's work is of a required standard? So as supervisors, we're familiar, I believe, and if anybody's not clear, by all means, feel free to ask any questions about the three functions, sometimes referred to as styles. And what I'd like you to do, if you agree, is you've seen the survey, that we can see what can happen in coaching supervision. You've looked at these three functions of styles of coaching supervision. So I'd like you, if you'd agree, to just get in groups of 3 for about 10 minutes and ask yourself and share which one do you believe you lead with, or in which order, because we'd all like to say that we do, 33% of each. But in all reality, which one do you lead with? And how might that be related to psychological safety? So we're going to put you into breakout groups. I have almost 20 past the hour. Is that what you have, Lily?
Yep, I've got 8:19 my time, so I'm going to open the rooms. There are 2 people that don't want breakout rooms. Please don't go into them then. I've set everybody else up. So all breakout rooms have 3 participants. There's one that has 4 participants.
Maureen, can you go back to the slide real quickly?
Okay, and let me just ask you to probably take a picture of this question, because I'm not sure we can post it back into the chat. I'll try to, but if you're not, you just take a quick picture of it. Okay, so we'll go back and look at the functions first. Is that what you were asking for, the developmental,
Yes,
supportive, or
please.
ethical?
Yes, if you could
Which
hold
one
that
do you
for
think
one.
you lead with? And you can take, by all means, take a picture of this as well if you'd like. And that's, yeah, okay, so you know that. All right, and that's the question, but I really want you to have some interesting conversations. I'm going to stop sharing for a minute as you go into breakout rooms.
Hello, Marcia. I'm going to put you into a breakout room because you came in late, so it wasn't part of the. Enjoy your conversation.
Welcome back, everybody. Okay, I was mentioning I have an unstable internet, so if it becomes garbled or something, please let me know. Or anyway, so what we'd like you to do is perhaps you have one person that can share or write down your insights into the chat, but I really want to hear from you. I want your voice. Who would like to share?
I'd be happy to.
Please, Paulette, thank you.
Oh, sure. Well, the group and I had differing views, which was great, and it really enriched the conversation. And I mentioned that I thought it was a trick question because I don't lead with anything. I have a context for who the client is. Is it a beginner coach, a seasoned coach? And then I listen to what the case is, and I listen to the way they tell the story. And maybe from there, I start becoming a little biased about developmental or ethical or emotional. But I can't say that I lead with anything. But if you're saying that we all have an unconscious lead, I think my unconscious lead is developmental. And Janet and Francoise, I think, agreed with me that it depends. And I think Janet said she likes to lead with emotional. Is that right, Janet? I don't want to misquote you.
Yes, I think I said, yeah, I said to me it's more about the being of the coach, and that feels interior. The other two feel a little further out. Head context.
Okay. Great. Any other reporting back from groups, or you can share privately in the chat as well? Just reflections. There's no answer. It's just more of a reflective question that I asked myself.
Go.
Marissa? Sorry.
It's
Lynn,
Lynn. It's Lynn talking, Maureen. Yeah, I was with Linda and Begum. We had a great conversation, and I think, you know, one of we talked about a few different things, but we saw this creation of psychological safety as kind of what needed to happen before any of the other functions. And so leading with supportive help create that emotional support and perhaps normalized cases that members were bringing, but also created this environment in which it was kind of a Venn diagram of all three functions coming together. We also talked about that for the coaching supervisor, it would be important to have our own level of comfort with discomfort. And so our ability to be in the presence of anger, rejection, stress, shame, whatever comes up in the group. And therefore, you know, be able to create the environment in which people could move from comfort into discomfort. And that idea that with growth comes a certain amount of letting go of safety at some point, but we need to start with where the group is. I don't know if I captured that very well. Begum and Linda, feel free to jump in.
I can follow up build on that. My group was Lillian and Sunny, and we kind of went a little bit off on a different tangent.
Okay.
Yeah, we started talking about, there was the kind of, to what Lynn was speaking about, we talked about rescuing and maybe how our definition or our perhaps even bias of what psychological safety is and what it looks like might impact our behavior. But then we also had a really interesting discussion around, as the supervisor, how psychologically safe might we feel in a group, depending on the makeup of the group and the dynamics. So it was, you know, and then we talked about like who's responsible, some of the things that Lynn already mentioned, but Lillian or Sunny, if you want to add, I think we had a really great conversation.
I just think it got to be very intricate in this whole idea of accountability and the distinction of where the supervisor is responsible and then also accountable to the group, accountable to self, and going back to agreement. It was really interesting because we saw so many different layers in this. And I forgot the question that you brought up, Lillian. So,
that I brought up?
yeah, I thought you brought up a question when we were talking. You said that's really the essence of what the question is about.
I forget. I personally was most in it. We had two questions. At least at the part that I recapped that it was two, but the first one really intrigued me, which was, what does psychological safety look like for the supervisor? Because I've never thought about that before, per se.
Okay, excellent. We're going to be going into that in a few minutes. Thank you. Somebody else, another group, please, Genevieve.
Yes, in our group, I was with Gabriella and Murthy. Now we have wonderful sharings, and we come together on the restorative, supportive aspect of things, and we share that we are our first tool, and it's all about feeling and seeing the person. It's very important that nothing can happen if we are not connected at the deepest level of the person. And I was sharing a title of a book, which is very interesting to look at, which is the leader as a healer, from Nicholas Johnny, that I am sharing in the chat box.
Please do.
Which
Great.
is, yeah.
Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off. I was happy you shared it. Thank you.
No, that was a beautiful sharing. Maybe Gabriella and CNN, maybe you want to chime in? You want to add something? Yes.
No, just to say that was a wonderful conversation, because we express how we have been changing. At the beginning, we shared that we may have more developmental conversations with our supervisees, but for some reason we've been changing into the restorative and paying attention more to the emotions, to the feelings, and connected and being present. And Genevieve mentioned in a beautiful way the words that is, how you say it, Genevieve? I'm here, I see you.
I see you, because I take it from the Ubuntu.
Yeah.
I am because you are. And it's also Sabuvona, I see you. And I see you and I feel you, I feel you as well. And for me, that's where the connection happens. And then the supervisee gets more confident to talk about whatever is going on.
Yeah, I love that. Sawabana. So
Yeah.
important. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Anybody else from another group? We can dive into what psychological safety really is. You mentioned the book, and actually there's also, there's a lot out there, and I would even say today I got an email from McKinsey who talks about this anxiety and fear are universal experiences, and there's just so much to be fearful and anxious about. So as coaches, I know I work with multinationals and global executives, so they're bringing their anxiety. It's contagious. I bring it to my supervision. So whatever happens, all of these emotions are present. And I know that for me, it took perhaps the pandemic lockdown to really come to term with how I was experiencing my own anxiety. And then I think this is what really intrigued me with psychological safety, because it's something that I had always experienced, but never really thought about until I was involved with more of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen again. Anything, please add questions, and anything in the chat that I should read. Oh, yes, there was something that was really important that Naomi wrote here. And Naomi, would you like to share it at all? Or should I just read it for you? Her starting point in coaching supervision as in coaching is holding the space, right? For that mutual emotional safety, so the client's whole self is more likely to be front and center for us both. And she perceives her focus evolves responsively into the developmental and ethical needs of presenting themselves. Oh, it's too noisy here. Okay. We're glad you're here, though. Thank you, Garcia. Okay, Naomi, sorry. Let me go and share my screen, and we're going to reveal what all this is all about. It's not just a trendy word, right? So with this, let me move this down here up, and we'll see how we're gonna from current slide. Okay, so with this in mind, I realized that I come from my first, and of course, I'd love to imagine that I'm all, but my first approach is the supportive side. It's that side of holding the space. And I think that that safe space is also in the eyes of the beholder and the holder of the space. And many of you touched on that. What is the mutual accountability? And I was mentioning to Lily earlier, I was involved in a program, and when I was accepted into this program, into this group supervision, the first person who I had high esteem for said, "Oh, you'll be very different than everybody else." And that put me on hypervigilance. What was me? Why was I different? How could I? And then I just realized that, yeah, there was, so my eyes, the space already shifted to being hypervigilant, and the holder of the space, in my eyes, didn't provide that. So in this, we remind ourselves, our supervisees, our coaches, they need to handle a lot of emotions and boundaries, and they need to do this largely on their own. Hence our calling as supervisors, right? And I really appreciate the EMCC's global definition is really to provide support for the supervisee's well-being. And I think that, you know, as supervisors, the empathy, the acceptance, we started with obviously compassion, but flexibility, openness with confrontation, a sense of humor, and appropriate self-disclosure is all important. And Charlotte Sill's article on role stuff, how everyone struggles as they try to be accepted and rejected. So as a coach supervisor, and even as a team coach, I am, and I don't know who said it exactly. Somebody mentioned, I think it was Lynn, in your group with Linda and Bigum. But it's the first thing, providing that safe space, and then being comfortable with our own discomfort, and then looking at ethical developmental, depending on the situation and the needs of the group. But what I really want to emphasize now is what is our role. If we, coaching supervisors, are not careful, we can block and disable our own learning and the learning of others, which of course is the exact opposite of what we want, right? So what is it? What is psychological safety? This comes from leader factor, Timothy, goodness, I've got his name all of a sudden, Fox, sorry. And he talks about stages, and I'm not somebody who does pyramid or stages. I really do like that Venn diagram, or, you know, somebody might come with this idea, do I belong in this group? Am I growing? Am I learning? Am I making a difference? And I would say particularly, especially when we're talking about adult learners, can I challenge the status quo? Can I challenge the person presenting or telling me, you know, how not? And so he takes this as stages, and he says, with the higher respect and permission, you'll get into the fourth stage of feeling that you can challenge somebody in the way they're doing or saying things. So to make it a bit deeper, these are the questions that I'd invite you to think about, and I'll share these with it'll be on the website as well. But if you want the questions particularly, you can look at Timothy R. Clark. But inclusion safety is, how do your natural strengths help to increase feelings of inclusion and belonging for yourself? So as supervisors, I'm inviting you to think about, what do you naturally do? Hence, you know, I looked at, are we more into developmental or ethical or supportive? And then how do you help others to feel included, respected, and valued? One simple way, and we do it, you know, sort of systematically now, but just making sure that everybody has a voice in those first 10 minutes, be it chat, write something in the chat. You know, I will say again, sawubona with my accent, but the idea is that I see you, you are here, your voice counts. And that's, you can move into learner safety. And again, as a supervisor, how do your natural talents, your strengths, help to deepen your curiosity, risk-taking, and learning engagement? And how do they encourage the learning and growth of others? So again, it's both the mutual accountability. Contributor safety, how do your strengths help you feel safe to contribute? What do you lean on to find your voice? You know, how do these facilitate authentic collaboration with others and invite their contributions? And as a holder of the space, you know I have to be very vigilant that, you know, even if it's only 5 people in my coaching group supervision, that everybody is recognized and felt and seen. So Ivana, and also, you know, feeling that you have the courage to innovate, to speak up with candor and challenge what I might even say or what others might say, and that nobody should feel that it is a criticism of their identity, because of course, then we're falling into what can be perceived as, the imposter syndrome. So how does the entire group, how can we bring creativity to our coaching supervision, innovation and new ideas so that the growth becomes exponential and not just on a skills type of growth? So with this in mind, the rationale for coaching supervision will continue to diverge from its clinical origins, a process that is already underway, and supervising coaches working in an organizational context is different to supervising counselors. So why did I add this? You can see that Carol wrote this in 2006, so it's been a while. I'm going to say I struggle, that's not exactly, but I'm acutely aware of boundaries. And that's one of the, sometimes in psychological safety, if we're especially, I'm a coach supervisor and I'm a coach and I'm a team coach. I have no therapeutic background. So I know that in environments where people might want to totally understand my causals or my whys or my wherefores of, ages back, it's not something that would be what I would want. So I would have to find the courage to speak up and say, that's not what I need. And I think there was an excellent book actually by Eric DeHaan on how to be a supervisee, how to choose your supervisor. So I'm wrapping up early. I'd rather I speak too fast, but here, this was from the feedback from the great conference. Again, I'll applaud Lily and Damien and all of the background help that they had. And it was feedback who said, as coach supervisor, the challenge is for all of us is to spread the word as ambassadors of this incredible work so we continue to grow personally and professionally. And I think that if that's our ultimate goal, then psychological safety has to be part of what we offer. So with that in mind, I'm just asking you what to reflect on. What am I doing to create psychological safety in my group coaching supervision? So that's all of my death by PowerPoint, and I'm going to come back to you. What has landed? What has not? Please share. Jump in.
I'll start, Maureen. I'm still not
Thank you, Cindy.
clear what the consensus is or definition of psychological safety, what it is, whether we all agree. So to talk about, can we create it, sustain it? It's different, it seems I'm getting from different people. That's the first thing.
Okay.
The second thing is whether it's even really necessary, and what says or who says that has to be the prerequisite. So I'm just asking the questions. Don't have any conclusions or answers. But.
Okay, and I'm asking the questions too, so that's why I'm sharing. I don't have any definitive answers, but I can answer the one question about psychological safety because there's more and more being written about it. And I could walk you through an experience. I did it a bit quickly in the beginning, but have you ever been in that room where there's that person, and when you see that person, they just suck the oxygen out of the room? You can't find your voice. You cross that person in a hallway and you want to hide in the closet. Those are, if you think about what's happening in your body right now, and Boyas Artista has done an excellent example of this. You're freezing up. Your arteries is shown in functional magnetic resonance that your arteries actually contract. You cannot think if you do not feel safe. And that's at first sight. Once inclusion, the learner safety. So if our goal is for people to grow, to learn, to question how they're doing things and question how we as supervisors are showing up, then if we can't dance together, we can't learn together. And so this is neuroscience showing that. So it's that sense of being able to have a voice, to feel that I can speak up, that I'm learning, that I can challenge what I'm hearing without making people feel judged. Please tell me
The
more.
example you just gave was an extreme. And I think that there are very differing degrees of that, for people. And so I couldn't use that example as the definition of psychological safety. In your question that you posed, there is an assumption. That's what I'm talking about. And my perception of psychological safety may be very different than yours. And I rarely feel psychologically safe.
Sorry, you rarely feel
Rarely,
psychological.
yes. So
Rarely,
I can't,
yeah.
you're assuming that everybody understands what you mean by psychological safety and that they're having those same experiences.
So if we were to take just, I'm referring to Timothy Clarkson, we could refer to others, but just for this moment, if we could take that example that in a group, and I think this is important, that it has been proven that psychological safety happens in a group setting. Okay, when you're on one-to-one, it's more of it's individual. You don't have the threat of the group itself. So when you look at teams, team coaching, group coaching supervision, it's the how am I included? So what am I doing to feel included? And what is the provider of the space doing to make sure I'm included? That's, because diversity is what we have. Diversity is life. Inclusion is a choice. So tell me, so that's, I'm not sure I'm answering your question. I feel.
Are you saying that that's your definition, your working definition of psychological safety in a group?
My working definition of psychological safety in a group is the ability to have a sense of belonging, have a sense of my voice will be heard, that I am learning and growing, and I can question and contribute what I think is valid and relevant to the discussion. And if I don't feel that, then I will then ask myself, I will go on vigilance. I will say, what is it that makes me not feeling that way? And then that's part of the journey to reflect on and eventually share, be able to share with my coaching supervisor, if I'm in a group or in a team leader, what is it that makes me feel judged here? I should be able to ask that question because it might be just coming from me.
I guess I hear what you're saying, at least I believe I do. I just don't agree with that definition. I hear what you're saying.
Can you share your definition, or if it's not too early? Or
well, again, I don't know what it is because I rarely ever have it, so I can't contribute to what you've experienced.
So, okay, without.
I don't want to get off.
No, but in an environment, what is it? What trigger would make you feel uncomfortable sharing your voice or questioning the person speaking? Is there anything there?
Well, just being different.
Okay, so okay, and so you're different. And take a look at the Brady boxes. All right, we're all different, and we all have our stories, and that's why I started with that short poem that I wrote, because we all come with our scabs and our sore spots, and I think that if we try to push that, and I think this again, I'm referring to my own experience, somebody tried to get to know me or assume that they knew me when I hadn't opened my heart yet. So I didn't feel included, if that makes sense. But I need to hear from you, Sunny, and I see that Janet and Linda also. So Sunny, I'd love to have this conversation again because I'm just discovering it. Yeah. I'm exploring it. Okay. Janet, I saw your hand up first, so please. Yeah.
Okay, I think it was actually Linda, but
sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Linda, would you like to go first?
You're on mute, Linda.
Sure, I'll go first, although it doesn't make any difference, Janet. Thank you. I guess, Maureen, when you were describing that and Sunny was talking about it and you said it doesn't apply in one-to-one supervision, it does for me because I feel like I come to any group, and for me, a group is two people, because I bring everybody else and my prior experience to that experience with one person. So there's a group in the room, whether it's me and one other person or me and a whole group of people, I bring all those other folks with me. And so my psychological safety is based on how safe I have felt in prior experiences and how this particular situation goes. So that's why I'm having a little difficulty accepting that psychological safety is only in group supervision.
Okay. And I'm quoting what Timothy Clark has come up with in the idea that it's triggered in a group environment on a one-to-one, perhaps, and I'm not saying specifically in coach supervision, but on a one-to-one, maybe we don't have the stories of the others around us that might be intimidating or might have microaggressions. You know, when we're hypervigilant, we listen to words differently. We wear our emotions on our sleeves.
I guess, Maureen, what I'm saying is, I appreciate Timothy Clark's comments. What I'm saying is I do have those other people's stories in a one-on-one. I come there wanting to feel like the other person accepts me and that I am connected before I can let go of some of those other stories. So I'm not disagreeing. I'm just sharing a different perspective.
No, and I appreciate that, because actually you're touching on an extremely important point, is all the stakeholders in the room, the ghost in the room. So we're not just one-on-one, for sure. So that's a valid point. And maybe we'll need to explore this more in the coaching supervision world, because we come with our ghosts and our scabs and scars. Thank you for reminding me of that, Linda. Janet.
So I'm just watching time. So
I
let's
know.
manage the time. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay,
Janet,
thanks,
and then we'll
Lily.
wrap up.
I'll try and be succinct, which is not my greatest strength. So I really just want to say that I was really struck by the slide that talked about the difference between clinical and coaching supervision. And what I guess I want to say is that even if your clients are coaching in organizations, what makes it psychologically safe for those people to show up in their teams and in their work is the belief that it's safe to be me, it's safe to use my voice, it's safe to make mistakes. You know, that they know that what makes those teams effective is that they're not afraid to say something that people are going to go, huh? Like, what? So I think in creating an environment in coaching supervision, we want to support these people in their learning and their insights so they can go back and be more effective in their work. And we have to recognize that it's the organism. You know, you talked about the arteries kind of closing up. We bring, as Linda said, we bring our whole history, we bring our whole body, and that has reacted way before our prefrontal cortex has kicked in. So if that's with me in the room with all my history, you can bet I'm looking around going, huh, should I listen a little longer and see if I can figure out the rules here? Right? Like that's the human in the coach, right?
Definitely, and it's the heart of coaching. It's the heart of coaching supervision, is to know that we come with all these complexities. So sometimes when I have supervisees and they want to transform somebody, I'm like, whose agenda is that? You know, I mean, that's what I'd love, but is that my goal? And just being there, just holding the space is what I think my role is, more so. But we could go on, and please reach out to me. A word before you leave, a color, a sign of the weather, something, one word as we run around before I hand it back over to Lily and Demian.
And how about putting that in the chat? One word.
Yeah, okay.
As you check out. Thank you. Thank you so much, Maureen. As you can see, it became very vibrant in the conversation, and we could probably go on for hours on this topic. Yeah. So thank you for provoking our thinking here. So third Monday of every month is when we have our calls. July 18th, we have Merle coming in to do somatic care for supervisors. August the 15th, team coaching supervision. Larissa and Tracy, who are running our community of practice on team coaching supervision, will be here. September 19th is our book launch. And in October, Tatiana Bashkarova is coming to join us. So hopefully we'll see you in one of the future sessions. Thank you, Maureen. Very thought-provoking. Lots of comments in the chat. Please take a look at those.
We can save that, right? Can we share those?
You can share. You can save it by hitting the 3 dots at the bottom of the chat.
Great. Yep, that's right. Thank you.
And also, Lily, let's remind everybody to save the date for next year, for April 27 to 29 for the conference in Hawaii. So you want to save the date.
Thank you. And we do have a one-day virtual conference on April 22nd as well. That leads into the conference in Hawaii for those who won't be able to make Hawaii, because we know that not everyone will be able to join us. All right. Thank you so much, and see you in July, everybody.
Thank you again. Be well, everybody.
Have
Have
a
a wonderful
great
summer.
have a great month.
Thank you, Maureen.